Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you by us here at Birmingham Live. I'm joined today not by Alex Dickin, who's currently winging his way to Henley and Arden to speak to Gary Rowett, but by Lee Clark, a man who knows just what it is to sit in the seat that Rowett's currently sitting in. He's also a man who knows what it is to be in a relegation scrap with Birmingham City, and thankfully, mercifully, Lee, you also know what it's like to experience the euphoria of winning that scrap. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. Thanks for offering us the chance to come on.
No, it's brilliant. You'll always hold a place in Blues history, if nothing else than for that sprint down the touchline at Bolton.
Yeah, that's a bit of folklore in Blue Nose history, as you say. And it's. I hope Gary's not having to do that come this season. I hope he's got it all boxed off before the 96th minute on the last game of the season, that's for sure.
Yeah, don't do that to us again. Yeah, exactly. As I say, thanks for joining us. What are you up to now, Lee? Are you watching Bobby? You've obviously your son has moved from Newcastle to Liverpool, doing very well at Liverpool. What else are you up to?
Career's gone full circle, Brian, to be honest. I'm back being a fan again. Back supporting Newcastle United, home and away. Especially away games when I can get there. And as you say, coupling that up with supporting Bobby, in fixtures both across the country and in Europe. So yeah, it's as I said, full circle. Really enjoying it. Obviously, things are going well now after a difficult season for Newcastle with injuries. They look like they're going to have a strong finish to the season, potentially get into Europe again. And obviously, Bobby's had a terrific season with Liverpool that we can hope that they can add to the Carabao Cup that he's already won. But obviously, a difficult few weeks ahead.
Did it cut you in half a little bit when Bobby left Newcastle to go to Liverpool?
Obviously, it's hurt because, I don't know how many fathers and sons have represented the club. I wouldn't have thought there's that many. And obviously, being a Newcastle fan, I'd love to and be so proud to have seen him do that. But, Bobby's he's not quite. He's a very mature young man. He understands what he wants. And he made that decision that he wasn't getting developed in the way he wanted to at the time. And when he spoke to Liverpool, he decided that they were the club where he wanted to progress. And I've got to say, it's all fell into place what was talked about in the talks. I mean, I wasn't there personally because it was while I was working overseas, so I was in and out on Zoom calls, etc. And as Bobby spent a couple of days at the AXA and then at Anfield meeting all the staff from Jurgen all the way down to the academy staff. He made the decision that was the club for him.
Yeah, to be fair, I think he's played something like 14 senior games so far this season. He's become Liverpool's youngest ever goal scorer, succeeding Trent Alexander-Arnold. And he's also got himself a Carabao Cup medal in his pocket as well. So, yeah, it's difficult to characterise that as anything other than a success. What about you, Lee? Have you any desire to get back into management?
To be honest with you, Brian, not really. But I know how much of a drug football is to us lads who are in it. Anyone who plays the game, they become addicted to it or is involved in the game, like yourself as a reporter, a journalist, anyone who's a coach or a manager, a player, a supporter. It just takes over you. And, even though I've said I don't think so, there could be something that down the line gets us back into it. I don't know, but at this moment in time, as I said, I'm really happy with how things are going. I don't have even though I want Newcastle and Liverpool to win, I don't have the stress of having that responsibility as a manager, because when I was a manager, it wasn't just the players on the pitch and the players off the pitch. It was the supporters, it was the people in the offices, the backroom team. I felt all their pain or pleasure, whatever the result was. So I don't miss that side of it, that's for sure. So yeah, at this moment in time, I would probably say no more managerial positions, but who in this game, it's just crazy to see 100%. Definitely not. You look at people like, I think Neil Warnock's retired 10 times or something, hasn't he, in his career? So, so yeah, it's just you love the game, and it's you want to be part of it sometimes, and then you think, no, do I really? Especially now, it's getting harder as well. Some managers, I mean, if you look at Blues alone, how many managers they've had over the last few years, that tells you what the game's like. And you don't get long in there in the hot seat if things don't go well. There's certainly not time to bring your own philosophy or project, whichever words you want to use, unless you hit the ground running and you win in games, to allow yourself to do that.
Yeah, indeed. You made reference to how many Blues managers have had over the years. They've had 6 this season, Lee. So it's a fair point, well made. And of course, the no seat was hotter, I would imagine, than when you came to Blues. Just going to wind the clock back now. Just before the 2012-13 season, have I said that? Was it the 2012-13 season? Yeah, it was.
So, yeah. I think you'll know the dates better than me. Yeah, it blurs into one really. So, I mean,
yeah, it was.
When I initially agreed to take the job, it was a real attractive job. Chris had done brilliantly with the team. Had success in a European campaign and got them into the playoffs. So here was a club, when I agreed to take over, that wanted to kick on from that, wanted to go one step further and get to the holy grail of the Premier League, and were prepared to back myself and my staff financially with that. But obviously, circumstances with the owner, Carson Young, becoming under house arrest, his assets all frozen, completely changed the dynamics, and it became damage limitation. It became reducing the wage bill significantly, but to try and keep the club as high as possible in the Championship, not to, unfortunately, one of those things where you couldn't relay everything to the fans. They still had the expectations, and rightly so. Never ever blame them. The support home and away was phenomenal. But obviously, when you're reducing the wage bill to the level that we did, which ended up being a bottom 3 budget, it was to try and keep the club in the Championship. So a real huge club, attractive job, infrastructure superb, people. I called them the English board, the people in the administration side who ran the club basically. After what happened with the Hong Kong people, brilliant people, couldn't give us any more support. Supporters, as I said, in the thousands, home and away. Difficult for them because they want to see that club doing really well. So it was, as you said, it turned into a very hot seat at the time.
You were swimming against the tide almost straight away, weren't you, Jordan? You just landed, then Jordan Much was sold, and Ben Foster was sold, and then midway through your first season, Jack Butland was sold and then loaned back.
Sorry,
go on.
I mean, the Jack Butland one and the Nathan Redmond deals were real killers for me in terms of these were 2 young players I would have loved to have built the team around. We did sell them for a lot cheaper than they were actually should have been valued at, because, as you know, in football there's no secrets, and everyone knew that we had financial difficulties.
Yeah.
So basically the first offers that came in for the 2 boys were really accepted at quite a low figure, and especially when you see what they've gone on to achieve after the left Blues as well. So it was a triple whammy for me, really. 1, they're leaving the club. 2, they went for cheaper money than they should have. And 3, there were players I wanted to build my eventual squad round. When I had the initial talks with the club, these were the type of players that I seen that could have huge futures and could help the club get to the highest level. But unfortunately, the timings didn't allow that.
Yeah. To be fair, Jack left in January 2013, I think, and then you went on a good run. And I know, as I said, the tide was against you, but you dragged the team up the table into 10th, I think, at one point, sort of by sort of March time. And then you had a couple of wins, Bristol City and Leeds in April. And you must look at, I know you didn't come to Blues to finish 12th in your first season, but given the way the landscape had changed, you must have been pretty proud of that.
Yeah, like you say, I didn't come to do that. I seen this as a great opportunity for myself to do something I set out to achieve as a manager, and that was to be in the Premier League and to take a club of Birmingham stature there. I seen that as a great opportunity. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case. But as you say, that season, we finished a respectable 12th and had some good moments. We developed some more young players. We're reducing the wage bill. So, yeah, it was positive. And then I had the opportunity to potentially go again with, some other players the following season, and especially some of the loan players we brought in.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that. So you go into the summer of 2013, and again, you lose Nathan, lose Curtis Davis that summer as well, key players. But as you said, you are able to augment the team with guys like Jesse Lingard, Dan Byrne, Kyle Bartley. The start was a bit slow, but then sort of again by December you were hovering around 13th, 14th position. Looked like you'd got you'd found the right combinations and stuff. And then in that January, Byrne gets called back, Lingard gets called back, and Bartley does as well. You must have felt it was falling apart in front of your eyes, did you?
Yeah, I think in December, going up to I think it was January the 1st, I think we'd gone 8 unbeaten or something, 4 wins and 4 draws.
Yeah.
And I think we were just loitering around outside the playoffs. We felt that if we could keep the squad together and just make 1 or 2 other additions, like you say, Byrne had come in and done a great job. Him and Bartley had got a good partnership. Obviously, Lingard was proven to be an exciting signing, scoring and assisting. But it was quite surreal how it happened. It was, I'm sure we played Barnsley over the festive period at home, I think, and I got a phone call from Julia Shelton to say all 3 clubs had been on to recall the players, and it was a huge setback. And it just shows you that sometimes with loan players they can work, which those lads did. And then with the replacements we brought in January, it completely went the opposite way, and it didn't. And I think, the difference was when you sign loan players, I think they've got to have the mentality where when they come into your club, they behave like they are at that club. So, for example, Dan, Kyle and Jesse behaved like they were Birmingham City players. This was their club. If they lost, it was really hurtful. They weren't thinking about their parent clubs or whatever. I think with the replacements, and this is no slight on them, it just didn't work out. But I felt as well that they always had their other eye on going back to that parents' club, and this wasn't the be all and end all. This was just a way of helping their development, and I think that showed in the way things panned out in the second half of the season, when we just obviously slipped down the league. And I think that gives you an example of how tough it can be when you're only in the market for lowly paid free transfers or loan players, young loan players coming from the bigger clubs. Some can work and some cannot. And that season, I think, gives everyone an example. The first half of the season, our loan signings worked extremely well. The second half of the season, our loan signings just didn't work at all.
Yeah, and you don't have to invite trouble in the Championship, do you? Which we'll come on to, because it will invariably find you.
Yeah, that's right. It quickly creeps up on you, and before you know it, you're right in the middle of a storm.
Obviously, that storm took you to Bolton on the final day, a day that will live long in my memory, live long in Paul Caddis's memory, and presumably live long in your memory. What I mean, everyone will know the circumstances of that, but I'll just reiterate it. Went into the game needing to better Doncaster's result. Went behind 2-0, Lee.
Bolton. I gave you a lead up to that as well, Brian. A good friend of mine who I worked with at Newcastle, Nigel Pearson, was manager of Leicester City, who were playing Doncaster in the final game. Leicester had the championship wrapped up. Nigel obviously knew Paul Dickoff as well, who was manager at Doncaster with his links to Leicester.
Yeah.
He called us both up in the middle of the week and assured us that he was putting out his strongest available team. They were looking to win. They hadn't been partying leading up to the game. And obviously the results would dictate which one of us went down. And I thought it was typical of Nigel, how he was, how honest he was. Appreciated that. And we went there and, yeah, we were 2-0 down. But unbelievably, we were playing well. We were dominating the game. We went one behind. We continued to dominate the game, didn't put our chances away and went 2-0. I remember going back to the dugout and saying to Richard Beale, Steve Watson and Martin Crosby, we're going to still get something out of it. I just had this weird belief that we were going to get something from the game and we just needed the other result to go in our favour as well. Even before the game, I remember, because it's a lonely place on away games when the team's out warming up, unless you're a manager who does a Jurgen Klopp and goes on the pitch and psychs out the opposition. That wasn't me. I was just sitting in the away dressing room and just text my friends and family and said that thanks for all that support in a tough year. This was the last hurdle and I believed the players could do it. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what set it off. The lead up to the game also, rather than do an analysis of Bolton in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, what I'd done is I'd got me and my staff to go around all the families and friends of each player, wives, girlfriend, children, mums, dads, grandparents, best friends, and I put a compilation of a video together for the lads to watch, to say, to ask them to give one more huge effort for the people who are important to them, to the people that they play football for, to the people who are so proud of them. I think I pulled at a few heartstrings, and I think the lads went out with a determination, no matter what was happening in the game, to never give up. And I think that's showed, obviously, by what's happened in the match.
And obviously a master plan. You always knew Paul Caddis was going to score the header, didn't you?
Yeah, the smallest player on the pitch scored in 96 minutes. I always knew, yeah. I'll tell you there'll be lottery tickets as well after this.
I think you just about hold it together when the equaliser goes in, but when the final whistle goes, Lee, you are headlong down that touchline into Blues fans. Can you? I don't know if you can even remember how you felt when, or what you were thinking, or your first thought when the final whistle went. Just take us back to that moment, please.
My first thought, and the emotion I showed, was because of what I said at the start. I felt for the fans. We had the away end filled out. They were there in numbers. They never turned on the team during the game. They kept supporting even at 2-0. And the relief was for them. The relief was for the great people behind the scenes. The relief was for the staff, backroom staff, who've been there many years and who are supporters of the club as well. It was nothing to do for myself. It was just for all the great people involved in the club, that it hadn't gone down to the level, because I remember using the word Armageddon if the club had went down, and because of its financial state at that time, if the club had gone into League One, it would be horrible to think where it would be now, because it wasn't in a position to invest to try and get straight back up from a league that the club had, didn't want to be in, of course. And so it was all that. I mean, I always get asked, I must have went out partying that night and had great celebrations. And actually, when I got back home to Birmingham, went out for a meal with my family, and I ended up having, before we even started the meal, ended up asking if we could go home, because I was mentally and emotionally drained. And it was went to bed really early and slept, and just relief, really. I think it was just all that emotion. It was the relief, and the next day was still with a championship club, which was huge.
Yeah, indeed. Then you spent that summer doing a quick rebuild, I think on a wage cap of 5k a week. Was that right?
Yeah, that was it. We were wage cap. So credit to some of them players who came. A lot of them had bigger financial offers. But when I brought them to West Hills and showed them St Andrews, and I give them examples of the crowd at home and away games on footage the season before, when we're a team who'd been struggling, but how the support got behind the team in numbers and in the noise, we convinced them to come. And that I believed for the finances we had, we brought some really good players in.
You absolutely did. You got guys there that were signed on frees that went on to play 100, 150 games for Blues. Clayton Donaldson, I think he was slightly beyond the budget, but Jonathan Grounds came in and played 2 or 3 seasons. Stephen Gleeson was an important player at times. Some of those players really did.
If you think as well, Tom, Brian, sorry, I brought Tom Adeyemi in for a season on a free from Norwich.
Yeah,
we ended up selling him in the pre-season to Cardiff for a 7-figure profit, and Tom would have been an integral part of that third season with the players I was bringing in for what he could do, what he could achieve. So that was another blow. And those players, it changed their mentality. And if I look back on it, I think there was probably 2 games that defined that season if they had been different. One was the Brentford game away, where we were 2-0 up, and I made a couple of indifferent decisions in terms of, I didn't think, even though we're 2 up, I didn't think we're playing particularly well, so I tried to change the system, because I went with 2 strikers, if you remember, in Wes Thomas and Clayton Donaldson. We had pace and power, people that want to get in behind, hot work ethic. And Brentford came back and got 2 goals, and it looked like we had thrown the game away, and and possibly my substitutions had played a big part in that. And then we had Ipswich at home, and we're 2-1 up against a strong Ipswich team under Mick McCarthy, and I think they scored in injury time. And if those results had been different, it would have given us the confidence to go on, because I think we were starting to make progress. But then obviously we went to Millwall and got a terrific 3-1 away win, but then come back and got a real disappointing 1-0 home defeat to Bolton Wanderers, really. So that was that. I believe if them 2 results had stayed in our favour, things could have worked out a bit differently.
It's a strange twist of fate that the man that replaced you, Gary Rowett, is now back as Birmingham City manager. Lee, what's it like when you see someone? You'd have no doubt seen Gary on the circuit in following years and been in the same places and same functions as Gary. What's it like having a relationship or a friendship or anything with someone that's just come in, or not just come in, but has previously come in and taken a job that you've just left?
No, listen, we understand that's the game we're in. I've actually got a good relationship with Gary. I was delighted how he turned things around. I think in hindsight, the turmoil that I'd worked under had probably took its toll. I was the only spokesperson for the club, whether it be football performances or financial performances, which I'd never really wanted to be my remit. So I couldn't really talk about it in the way I would like to the fans, because I didn't really know a lot about it. Just obviously there were certain times under embargoes and the finances weren't great. And I think at the time the players said, sometimes it gets to the stage where the players can see maybe things getting, the results taking its toll on me as well. And maybe they needed a bit of freshness as well. And maybe, someone like Gary with a different outlook, different philosophy, new members of staff done that. And that proved to be the case, came in and was really positive for the lads. The good thing is he didn't make a lot of changes to the lads that I had. Just you know, as I said, they probably responded to a different voice, and you know, done well for Gary. So Gary's a good guy. I know him really well. As I said, got a good friendship with Gary. We know that's the deal, the game we're in. If you don't get the results that are required, you lose your job. Of course, it hurt. I was working for a magnificent football club, and I loved it. And when I got asked to go to St Andrews and got handed the letter by Joe Alsop and Julia Shelton, I shed a few tears because it was a sad day for us. It was an emotional day. It was a job I loved being in. This was an opportunity, and as I said at the start, I felt this could have been an opportunity for me to become a Premier League manager, and obviously it hadn't worked out in that way. So, but now, I think unfortunately the circumstances of Gary coming in this season are completely different. Tony Mowbray is another guy I know really well. I think he was starting to do things in a positive manner with the Blues, when unfortunately his health took a turn for the worst. And I've said it on many things, but just like to reiterate that my thoughts and best wishes are with Tony. Hope he makes a healthy recovery. That's the most important thing, whether he comes back into football or not. But I think the one person who could come in on this interim basis and do the job is Gary. One, he knows the club really well, playing and manage for them. He knows what the supporters demand. He's done it before. So, I think it made perfect sense. It was, let's say, one of the decisions that the new people have got right, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you brought up the new people. I don't know if you've seen the coverage recently in terms of their ambitions for a new stadium, and to completely redevelop that area of around the Wheel site in Birmingham and that side of the city. There's talk of a 60,000 seater stadium. Maybe not in the 5 years that the current owner wants, but certainly, those plans are there. It finally seems that Blues have got the owners that their fan base deserves, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much turmoil. I couldn't believe it, when they got new owners after I'd left, but they still continued with the turmoil that was behind the scenes, and different managers and trying to go for high-profile ones who didn't work, rather than the lads who were doing good jobs. What I mean by that is Gary being relieved of his duties first time round for Gianfranco, who, by the way, is a terrific guy. John Eustace doing an unbelievable job having the Blues in playoffs and getting relieved of his duties for Wayne Rooney, one of the best players to ever play the game, but hadn't set the world alight in his managerial career, and that proved to be the case. So, I mean, and I keep an eye on everything that's concerned with Birmingham City. It's a club that I would love to see back in the Premier League. The fans, the people involved are brilliant. And I'm delighted that they've got an ownership group that are prepared and are looking to, make the club what it is and everything but its place in the league pyramid, and that's Premier League, with the stadium, the training facility, bringing everyone under one umbrella in terms of the first team, the academy, the ladies. Terrific plans with the stadium. So hopefully Gary can accumulate enough points where they can reassess things in the summer, look to have a strategy where they can push the team to try and go into the playoffs at least, and push to get to the Premier League.
Just thinking that there might be a stadium containing 40, 50, 60,000 Blues fans, it just sends tingles down the spine, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing. I think, you get them to the level. I mean, they've shown unbelievable loyalty to the club, from my tenure onwards, because they haven't had a lot to shout about at all in terms of, the fight and relegation too many times and just escaping it, and they've stayed in their numbers. If they had something to shout about and, get the stadium filled and give them something to look forward to in terms of back to the Premier League, and all those exciting things that come along with it.
Yeah, indeed. Which brings us on to this season. There is still work to be done on the pitch. Two of your former clubs, Cheek by Jowl, Huddersfield and Blues. What's your reading of the situation, Lee? Because we know it's not going to be easy.
It's horrible. It's two of my former clubs that I've got a great affinity for. And the second last game of the season, going to Huddersfield. I'm hoping, obviously, the game coming up at the weekend, Rotherham, do they get the Steve Evans effect where the players have something to play for to show Steve that they want to be part of his future? Because Steve's obviously well known in the game of making lots of changes to teams to try and get them promoted and being successful at that. But then that game down at Huddersfield Town is the proverbial 6-pointer, isn't it? I just think when I look at the fixtures, I think with Gary being in charge, I think Birmingham will have enough to stay in the league. I think they'll get enough points. I think by the time they come to the Norwich City home game, Norwich will be mathematically guaranteed of a playoff position, and they might be looking elsewhere in terms of what did they do in that last game for Norwich mightn't be so important in terms of points. But I just think the Gary Rowett effect at home as well, and especially with the two away games they've got, they'll do the job. So I think personally that Birmingham will get the job done. As I said, I hope it isn't going down to the 96th minute v Norwich City.
Yeah, all of us do. Certainly hope that is the case. Can we expect to see you at the John Smiths that day, Lee, or a Newcastle or Liverpool playing?
I know I've actually been asked about going, so I don't know. I mean, it might be too tense for us, to be honest. I mean, I was on holiday in Dubai over New Year, and Liverpool played Newcastle at Anfield, and I sat up because it was an 8 o'clock kickoff in the UK, which was midnight in Dubai, and I sat up and watched the game, and I've got to admit it was absolutely horrible because me emotions were torn between Liverpool and Newcastle, and that'll be very much the case at the John Smiths. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I haven't decided yet. I could be just absolute bag of nerves. I just wish there was a scenario where both teams can stay up. I'm not sure if that's still possible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is, yeah. So that would be the ideal scenario for me. I think it's more difficult, as I said, I think it's going to be more difficult for Huddersfield to do it than Birmingham. And I hope that they both can do it. So I don't know, I could be on an emotional roller coaster if I turn up with the John Smiths, that's for sure.
So it will either be a director's box or a darkened room for you, Lee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lee, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your insights into Blues past and present. Hope things keep going well for Bobby and Newcastle, and we'll hopefully speak to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for listening. Keep right on.